Right, hello. Um, it always takes me a while to get my thoughts together, but I guess you've seen that I worked in Saudi Arabia as a truck driver. But how it happened was like a chain of events which I couldn't really predict. I've done a lot of weird things in my time, but when I lived on the Isle of Sheppey, I tried my hand at having a fruit and vegetable shop selling fruit and vegetables. Sorry about that. Yeah, and they weren't very successful. But when I moved from the Isle of Sheppey to Whitstable, I thought that the reason my other businesses had failed is that I didn't have a very good position in the high street. So in Herne Bay there was a shop available for rent, right in the middle of Herne Bay, on the corner. A very busy and a very good place. So I negotiated to rent this shop, and we were almost on the point of signing the contract for a lease. I can't remember how long the lease would be, but I thought to myself, right, if I'm going to have a fruit and vegetable shop here in Herne Bay in Kent, I think what I'll do, I'll buy myself a truck so I can go to the local farms and buy the produce direct from the farmers, or go to the markets in London. The one I used to go to was called the Borough Market, which is just before London Bridge. So I went ahead and bought this 10-ton comma truck, green. Not that the colour makes any difference. It was a flatbed truck. I bought this truck. The only problem was that I didn't have a licence to drive a heavy goods vehicle. But I had a friend who did. So we arranged that he would drive, he would be with me while I drove, and as long as you have a person who's qualified to drive with you, it's okay for you to drive, like a learner. So after I bought the truck, it was £200, and it was a comma, a 10-ton truck. I went to the harbour where there was a fruit importer. I went to see the manager in the office. I said, "Is there any chance of doing any work?" I said, "I've got a 10-ton truck." He said, "Yes, so we can give you a load every day." So at 4 o'clock we used to go there and load the truck, usually with bananas or oranges that had been imported. And we did that nightly trip. We used to leave about 11 o'clock at night, and we'd be in the market by about 1, and we unloaded, and then we'd be back home in bed by about 3. So that all went very well, and I thought, well, once I had was able to then take my test, after a few weeks I took my test and passed the test. So then I've got Brian, who was my co-driver. I thought, well, now he needs a job, so what shall I do? As we were doing so well with the business, I also had at the back of the garden, we had a little shed, and in this shed we had a phone there and a little desk, and I had a part-time lady who came in and did the books, and also she answered the phone. It wasn't very expensive. So then I bought a second truck, And the second truck was an articulated vehicle, which meant that I once again had to have driving experience with Brian. And the first time I took the test with the articulated vehicle, I passed. I failed. On reversing, which is very tricky. So I had we had it near the bowling alley in Whitstable. There was a big car park just near the seafront. That's where we used to park our vehicles, and it seemed to be used by anyone to park. And we also did our repairs there. So I put cones there, and I practiced reversing the articulated vehicle until I thought I was good enough. And I took the test again and passed. And then I got my HGV, my heavy goods vehicle driving license. And I did a lot of work in the UK, all over the UK, even up to Scotland, Glasgow, Edinburgh, all over the UK. And I remember one time, it was quite interesting, because I always used to carry my tools with me. I always had these 2 metal toolboxes, blue they were, very heavy, all my tools. And I remember once coming back from the north, the vehicle started to make this bad noise, and I knew it was the big ends. In other words, the bearings on the crankshaft were worn, and the knocking got worse. And I managed to pull off and get into an industrial estate, and I parked the vehicle, and as luck would have it, there was a place where I could get spares. And I bought a set of bearings for all 6 cylinders, for the crankshaft, which meant then I had to, on myself, had to drain the oil, take the sump off, unbolt the crankshaft, lower it down, change all the bearings and put it all back, which I did. In fact, I think I spent one night there while I was doing the work. So for some reason I was quite good at fixing things, and I got back with no trouble. Another strange thing happened once. Once again I was coming back from the north with no load, and my clutch had gone, and I must have been somewhere, Birmingham somewhere, and the clutch didn't do anything. So it took me back to a memory of when I was a bus driver in Birmingham. I've been a bus driver in London on a semi-automatic pre-select gearbox, but when I took a test in Birmingham to drive for the Midland Red, I couldn't make the vehicle move. It was an old bus, a single decker, and he said, "You call yourself a driver?" I said, "Well, there's something wrong with the gearbox. What's wrong with it?" He said, "Your trouble." He said, "You don't know how to drive this vehicle. This is a crash gearbox." So I looked at him. He was behind me, the window there. He was behind. I said, "A crash gearbox?" He said, "Yeah, there's no synchro mesh on this gearbox." I said, "Well, how am I supposed to drive it?" He said, I'll show you. He said, get out the seat." I got out and he started to drive, and he explained to me that you have to time the gear change, the amount of the lay shaft and the engine must be the same speed, so that it slips from one gear to the other. And he used the clutch, and I drove and used the clutch, and I soon learned to do this. But after a while, I actually learned that you can actually drive a crash gearbox without using the clutch at all, just by timing. And I've even done this on ordinary cars. And I demonstrated it to my friends. You can drive a car without using the clutch at all, just by timing the shift, knowing how to lift your foot off the throttle. When the revs are correct, you can just slip from one gear to the next. So I was stuck with this vehicle 200 miles from base, and I thought, right, now the vehicle was stopped, so I put it in the lowest gear I had, which is first gear, the crawler gear, and I just turned the key with it in gear, and it started. But of course, this is you've got to have a good battery and you've got a good starting motor. But it started, and I drove, and that was okay on good clear roads. When I got to London, it was coming to rush hour. I had to make sure that I didn't get too close to the traffic in front. The traffic lights, I always had to make sure I didn't stop. And I drove all the way through London, 5 or 6 o'clock at night in the rush hour, and I didn't have to stop once. I suppose I irritated a lot of people behind me because I was driving so slowly. But I drove slowly so I could time that the traffic would move by the time I got to the lights. And that is just one little thing that I did it with trucks. So anyway, I ended up with several trucks, I think 5 trucks, and several drivers. Now we had Terry, he came to me one day and asked me if he could have a job. So it seemed okay, but he told me, he was straight up, he was straightforward. He said to me, the trouble is I've been disqualified, so I shouldn't really be driving. He showed me his license. He had a heavy goods vehicle license, but he had been disqualified. I think he had another 3 months before he was clear. So he looks at me. He said, look, I really need this job. He said, I'm a good driver, I'm careful, I'm sure it will be okay. And I took a chance. I said, okay, Terry. And he was a good driver. He worked for me for quite a long time. And I remember one day he was coming back off the journey, and we had a very good customer called Fisher, who had a farm, a storage depot, where we had to often go to load. And he'd go on the phone to me. He said, I need a truck. And the only truck that I had was Terry coming back off a long trip. And I said to Terry, can you get over to Fisher's and just pick this load up and then come back to the yard? And I would do the delivery myself. And he said to me, oh, he said, I've had no rest, I'm so tired. So I said, look, Terry, this is one of our best customers. I've got nobody else. I said, if you don't do it, we will lose this contract. So once again, he said, oh, no, I can't. He said, I'm far. I said, Terry, look, you've got the choice. I said, you either do it or you haven't got a job. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? It really does. I'm not a hard man. I had to say that to him. You either do it or you can forget working for you. And he said, okay, I'll do it. So it didn't take long, about an hour there and an hour back, everything was fine. And after a few months, he hadn't got any problems with the police, or he hadn't been stopped. His license was clean. And actually, Terry appears later on in my story. He's my best friend, but sometimes the best friend and your wife, some things can really be upsetting. Things can happen in your life that you wouldn't believe and you wouldn't expect. And I can't tell you about it now because I'm telling you about the truck experiences. So after we did the UK work, I had another good friend who had his own truck, but sometimes used to drive for me because his truck was broken down. We often repaired trucks together. I learned from him and he learned from me. Anyway, Mick, I had a contract to go to Belgium. And I used to go twice a week to Belgium to bring back chipboard from a factory in Belgium. And it meant taking the ferry from Dover to Zeebrugge in Belgium. Trip was about 4 hours. Now, you're not supposed to be down there in your truck. You're supposed to either be in the cabin, but that's the only chance I had to get some sleep. So I ignored the regulations and I had 2 or 3 hours sleep in my truck. So I then got to Belgium, and I had to be at the factory there by about midday. I picked up my load, and I got the ferry back from Zeebrugge to Dover about 4 o'clock. And I'd get back to the UK about 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then I'd have a few hours sleep, and then I would have to deliver this truckload of a chipboard to a firm in Bristol. And I did this many trips. And then I told Mick about this. It was a well-paid job. Mick decided that he would also do it, and he did. And a very sad thing happened to Mick, that I wasn't there with him, but he was doing the same job as me. And when the forklift had picked up this load of chipboard to put onto the trailer, the forklift truck, for some reason, I don't know why he would have done this, but he'd walked underneath the forklift truck, and the 5-ton load of, or 4-ton load of chipboard fell off the forklift truck and killed Mick. Flattened him. One of my best friends. Now, my ex-wife didn't like Mick, because Mick was always had oily hands and oily boots, and he was a very rough and ready person, and he was a real cockney, but I loved him. We were great pals. We had done many trips together. We've been to Yugoslavia together many times, Italy, so we'd known each other many years. When he died, well, you can understand it. Your best friend, it's unbelievable. And the thing was, I knew his wife called Mari, and they didn't have the money to get his body back from Belgium. So we collected money together, and it cost us £600 to get his body back to the UK from Belgium. And that was Mick. I mean, I've been in some really dangerous and risky situations throughout my life, from the time I was born. When I was born, I didn't breathe. I was blue. I didn't have a circulation. I'm now 82 years old, and I can't tell you how many things have gone wrong in my life. I'm fine. I'm happy. I can't walk very well. I've got a mobility scooter. And never mind. I'm not talking about my health. You've got to make the best of what you've got. That's what you've got to do. So, getting back to this, the truck. How did I get to Saudi Arabia? Yes, well, I had 5 trucks and drivers, and I had old trucks, and I keep getting breakdowns, and I also had I had a house which I had a mortgage on and a loan, but I borrowed money from the bank to support the big business. I was a personal friend of the banker. Well, he used to visit me. He used to come to my house, because we had a lovely house, and I think he would come there to have a look to see if the overdraft was okay, because it was a nice house. It was beautiful. So anyway, one day, I had a bill, a very small bill, from Invicta Motors of Canterbury for £209, an unpaid bill. And I don't remember refusing to pay it, but they put me into bankruptcy. So I didn't voluntarily go into bankruptcy. They had filed bankruptcy against me for some reason. So I went to see the official receiver in Canterbury, Mr. Evans, a young man, and I explained that the situation, that the business was financially not doing very well. I said, what do you advise? What do you advise me to do about this situation? So he said, my advice to you is to go voluntarily bankrupt. Now, that was the worst advice I'd ever been given. But I did go bankrupt, and it was a dreadful experience. Dreadful experience. After the bankruptcy, I got a job as a manager for a waste disposal firm, and when I went to the bankruptcy hearing, I was a bit naive, a bit stupid really. The magistrate said to me, "How did you travel here today, Mr. Gawley?" I said, "By car." He said, "By car?" I said, "Whose car?" I said, my car." He said, "You own a car?" He said, "You know you're not allowed to own anything when you're bankrupt." I said, "Well, it's the only thing that I have. It cost me £200. That's all I have." He said, "Well, I'm sorry, you'll have to give me the keys. You'll have to give me the keys now." And I said, I said to the magistrate, "No, I can't do that. That's the only way I can get to work." So he said to me, "I'll give you time to think about it, but if you don't give me the keys, you'll be held in contempt and you'll be kept in jail." So he carried on with another case, and about 20 minutes went by, and then he said to me, "Mr. Gawley, have you decided?" So I said, "Yes, that's okay." I gave the keys. As I was walking down, the clerk of the court took me to one side, and he said to me, I think he's quite sorry for me. He said to me, "Is there no one that could lend you the £200? I said, "The only person I can think of is my boss." I said, "We give him a ring." So I'd only been with that firm for about six months, but we phoned Sabers, the waste disposal firm. The top manager was Kel, and I explained the situation to him, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll pay the £200, and you can pay it back at £20 a week." So that's how I came to keep the Cortina. And so after the bankruptcy, I worked for a firm and was taking a load. They paid me £4,000 up front, and I bought myself a new Volvo. Not new, but I shouldn't have done this, but I did it. But I thought to myself, if I'm going to go to Iran, I want to make sure that everything's okay. So I had a specialist firm regrind the crankshaft, which cost £600. But I had £4,000. I had the vehicle, and I took the trip. And it's a very long story, but I'm getting rather tired now. So when I continue, I will tell you about the trip that I went through 14 countries, and disaster occurred to me in Turkey. And I'm sorry, but I'm getting tired, so that's all I have for now. And thank you for listening, and I'll continue again hopefully tomorrow. Bye.